I am just so thrilled, so excited, you guys, so grateful to have as our guest today my friend. I don't know how else to describe you. Like there's so many superlatives that I could use, Jake, that it's like I'll just let you speak for yourself. But you actually also have the distinction of being the very first man that I have ever interviewed on any of my platforms. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm honored. Honored to be the first bloke in here.
And a good day, mate. Right. I try. And how are you? It's so great to see you. I know it's early, well, kind of early for you, but great to have you here. And I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell us whatever it is that you want to tell us about who is Jake.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, obviously, if you can't tell already, I'm not from the States. I'm from Australia. And yeah, so Sandra asked me to come on here and talk about worthiness and talk about how worthiness and the body, how they go together, right? It might not really seem like there's a direct link there. It might not seem like there's like, hang on, how does that link together? So, um, originally, I'm a chiropractor. I used to have a practice here in Australia. And what I started to realize is that I saw that most people's physical conditions weren't really physical. It's like there would be clients that I'd work with and you do everything right structurally and physically and improve their posture and do all these wonderful things. And sure, some people would get better, but there were some that didn't improve. And what I began to study and realize is how stress affects the body, how past stressful events, particularly in childhood, can manifest physically in the body. And so now I help people with all kinds of like chronic and unexplained pains and injuries, understand exactly where that comes from so that they can actually move through them. So that's what I do.
I'd
Yeah.
love
So
to. So now this is what you do, but you said how before you were a chiropractor. I'd love to hear the story of how did you end up picking to be a chiropractor? What prompted you? What attracted you to that as a profession?
awesome question. Yeah. So originally I wanted to be a surgeon. Like I grew up just fascinated with the human body. Like as a child, I had there was like these collectibles that you can get at the news agency here in Australia. Like every week there'd be a new little booklet that comes out on a different system within the body. And I was just obsessed with the human body. I just thought it was this incredible masterpiece of like it's incredible when you think about what the body does every day. Like it's digesting your food, it's assimilating those nutrients, it's beating your heart and sending oxygen through your body. Like it's incredible. And as a kid, I was fascinated. So I always wanted to work with the body and help people as well. So initially, I wanted to be a surgeon, and I went and did a whole heap of placements in our local hospital, watching all kinds of surgeries, which was phenomenal. But one of the doctors there said, "So, Jake, what do you like?" And I was like, "Oh, love surfing, love keeping fit." And he goes, "Well, forget about that if you ever want to be a doctor." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Another doctor said, "Mate, whatever you do, don't become a surgeon. The only thing it's good for is a divorce." And he'd been married 4 or 5 times. So it was around that time that I fractured my back in a number of places playing AFL, which is like it's basically like gridiron but without the pads here in Australia. And so that sort of led me down to the traditional path of seeing all these sort of specialists, and they were just going, "Yep, here's some Valium. Oh, here's more Valium." Or just basically wanting to medicate me because I didn't know how to really help. And I was able to, a friend recommended me see a chiropractor in my local town. And basically it was incredible because they understood that the body has this ability to heal itself and to regenerate. It just needs the right conditions. So basically that's what prompted me to become a chiropractor. I'm like, well, this is a really natural way of helping when working with the body. And as well, I still get to surf. So that was kind of my how I got into this. And so I guess it did stem from a physical injury. And growing up, I had all kinds of injuries, like all kinds of pains and ailments and things like that. So it just seemed like a really good fit.
But then you said, so great fit. But then you said, I used to be a chiropractor. So what then happened to lead to you not being a chiropractor anymore?
So yeah, I graduated and started my own practice, my dream practice in a place called Noosa Heads in Australia, which is near where I live. Probably one of the most idyllic beachside towns, probably in the world. It's stunning, like it is really beautiful. And it was amazing. Like I had this pumping, thriving business that was really good. But through this period of time, I was continuing to get injured. I was continuing to have these injuries. And despite having all of the best treatment options available, like I could call up friends and I was get adjusted every other week. And I knew how to eat right. I knew how to look after my body. I knew how to do rehab exercises. Despite doing all those things, I was still constantly injured, constantly in pain, constantly dealing with this kind of stuff. And that's when I noticed that a lot of my clients were also dealing with the same thing. And so it led me to start looking at other modalities, other ways of helping people. And I was actually presenting a workshop on running technique of all things. And there were some people there speaking about something called German new medicine. And I was like, oh, sounds interesting. And in this presentation, they spoke of a guy called Dr. Harmer and his discoveries. And he discovered that like traumatic events that we experience in life. And when I say that word traumatic or trauma, it's a spectrum, right? It can be full blown. Like I've had clients that have been in wars and seen their best friends pass away in front of them. Like that's hugely traumatic. Physical, sexual abuse, like hugely traumatic stuff. But at the other end of the spectrum, everyday traumas like a breakup or a fight with a friend or losing your job, like things that we experience as human beings regularly. And what Dr. Hammer talks about here is how these stressful, traumatic, or unexpected events can cause the body to physically adapt to try and help us through that. And so when I started to look at this stuff, and started to apply this stuff, I was able to let go of a whole heap of my own physical pains. I was able to finally start to heal all these injuries that I had so that I could actually go back to exercising and sport and all the things that I loved. And then I started to apply it with my own clients, and they started to get these kind of crazy, amazing results that they hadn't been able to get anywhere else. And it was about that time that I was like, well, hang on, the chiropractic part of my journey, and chiropractic is phenomenal. I love it. I still get adjusted, but I realized it was just part of my journey to get to where I am. And so I had to kind of let it go in order to sort of pursue looking at the mind body side of things, because it's not really something that you can do in practice day to day typically, because people come to you because they expect a certain thing of you, and they expect you to help them with their posture and things like that. And so changing was kind of necessary. Yeah.
So explain what that is. What do you mean when you say that trauma shows up in our bodies? Like what are some of the ways that you see trauma show up in our bodies? And not like, obviously there's physical trauma where, I don't know, I broke a leg, but how does emotion show up in our bodies?
Awesome question. So yeah, if you get hit by a bus and you break your leg, there is no emotional trauma connection there that's causing the broken leg. Like it's purely physical, right? But what we're talking about here is symptoms that are really unexplained, symptoms that don't get better no matter what you do, symptoms that seem to come out of the blue or just take or leave like experts and doctors kind of scratching their heads. So the best way for me to explain how this happens is I want you to imagine being chased by a lion. So just imagine that in your own life for a second. Being chased by a lion is, I haven't been chased by a lion, but I'm assuming it's a pretty stressful situation, right? So based on that stimulus of being like seeing the lion, hearing the lion, being chased by the lion, your body is going to physiologically adapt. Your blood pressure is going to go through the roof. Your digestion is going to slow. Your eyes are going to dilate so that you can find a way out. Your blood's going to be rediverted to the extremities. So all of these physiological changes we see, and when you understand it from the context of, oh, my blood pressure's gone up because I'm being chased by a lion, you can see how those changes are actually helping you to escape. They're helping you to have the energy to flee or to fight the lion, right? Makes sense. So what then happens is, normally in nature, that lion you'll either escape from and you'll hide in a cave and then it goes away, or in nature you die, right? So this stress response is designed to be quite short-lived. It's designed to help you survive, and these physical adaptations are here to help you cope with being chased by a lion. But the thing is, for most human beings, is we can go through something stressful as a kid usually, and then unconsciously relive it again and again and again and again. And so those kind of stressful events will cause your body to physically adapt to help you escape, to help you have the energy to move. But when they are ongoing, that's when we start to see things like weird, unexplained symptoms. And I would say it's probably the biggest missing link in healthcare is that we medical doctors and healthcare practitioners are trained to, if there is a symptom in the body, they're trained to look at it purely physically. When they're not trained to look at it from a, well, what's been going on, like what stressful events have you experienced. So basically it's your body is this beautiful masterpiece, and it's working for you. It's always trying to help you, and it's just helping you to adapt to various stressful events in your life that you're unconsciously reliving. I hope that makes sense.
It makes absolute sense. So help me understand then. So in your practice, what would happen if I came in for a consultation with you? How are we going to figure out, okay, if I say to you, I don't know, I have back pain, for example. Like, where do you start? How do you start to know what that is that I'm holding on to?
That's a really good question, because here's the thing. If you're starting to understand that, hey, stressful events in my life, and we're not talking just trauma like war and abuse and all that kind of stuff, but like trauma, little traumas, like tiny little traumas that we have. If you're a human being, chances are you've been through hundreds of these over the course of your life, right? It's part of being a human. And so then it's going, well, how do I know which one? How do I know which stressful event? How do I know where this started? And the beautiful thing is, the work of Dr. Harmer is your body will tell you exactly what type of thing it's gone through. So based on what physical symptom that you have, that is going to determine what kind of stressful event that you've been through. So the way that we use this is your body tells me. I don't really have to ask many questions, because your body is telling me exactly what kind of stressful event you've been through. So based on your symptoms, we then work backwards and go, okay, back pain is linked to this kind of stressful event. Where did you experience this stressful event? And it's not where did you experience all of these stressful events, but where did you experience this particular one here? So we kind of use the body will tell you. The body will tell you exactly what emotions or what stressful events that you're harboring, and we work backwards.
And so does every symptom tie back to, so literally everything that if I have a headache, if I have an arm ache, if I have a, I don't know, whatever it is, tennis elbow, whatever it is, does everything tie back to an emotion?
Yes, I would say pretty much everything, with the exceptions of if you've been hit by a bus and broken your leg, there's not going to be any connection there. Or if you've been poisoned, if you've consumed some off meat or something, that's going to there's no connection there. So there are a few exceptions, but generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, especially if there's no known cause, it's like if you've just woken up with a sore elbow, or you've just woken up with a sore back, or you've every time that you play soccer, something happens. It's like there's usually a connection with those kind of things.
Something that I heard you mention somewhere else was the fact that even with food allergies or food intolerances, that also could be related to some emotional trauma. To explain that and how that works.
Good question. So one of the things that you see in a lot of healthcare practices throughout the world is like elimination diets. They're all the rage. It's like, oh, you need to get rid of dairy, you need to get rid of wheat, you need to get rid of sugar, all of these things, because these are the things causing your symptoms. Where I would actually say that's not necessarily the case. So let's go back to imagining you're being chased by a lion again, but this time it's sunny out. You're in a pine forest, so you can smell the pine needles. And let's say you're eating a peanut butter sandwich. So at the time that you were going through that stress, and then the lion popped out and started chasing you. So at that very moment that you went through that stressful event, your subconscious mind will take a snapshot of everything you hear, see, smell, taste, touch, and sense. And it does this to go, hey, the last time we smelt pine needles, the last time it was sunny, the last time that we were near this cave, the last time that I smelt this thing, or the last time I ate peanut butter and bread, you were attacked by a lion. And so then what happens is when that stressful event hasn't been resolved, the next time that you eat a peanut butter sandwich, or next time you eat bread or wheat or whatever it might be, unconsciously, that is like a reminder for that stressful event. And as such, the symptoms that you had will flare back up. So if every time you eat a particular food, what I would say is, well, that's going to be unconsciously re-triggering your brain, re-triggering your mind to some stressful event that you've experienced that's tied with a physical symptom. And the best way to sort of understand if this is true for you is, I always hear this all the time. It's like, oh, well, I'm wheat intolerant, for example. Wheat just ruins my digestive system, or wheat just every time I eat dairy, I just get really inflamed and all my muscles and joints get sore. The question that I always have to that is, well, has dairy always done that to you? Has wheat always had that effect on you? And 9 times out of 10 with the clients that I've worked with, it's like, well, no, as a kid, I ate fairy bread every other day. I would drink milkshakes, and it was fine. And then so it's like, well, what changed? What actually happened in your life? And when did this particular thing start? And so often people will be like, oh, well, I could eat wheat and drink dairy and do all this stuff. And then when I turned 23, then all of this stuff started to fall apart. I started to become really sensitive to these foods. So my question at the time we'll go, what was going on around the age of 23? Like, what stuff was going on for you then to start triggering these symptoms? Because you were fine before, something's changed. And the something is usually some kind of stressful event.
So you said the $1 million question there. You said, if you don't resolve it. So how do we resolve it? How are you should I be going through my life thinking, oh, is that a stressful event, or do I need to resolve? How do I resolve it?
Beautiful question. So the first thing is awareness. You need to know what stuff to resolve, right? So, and this is where your body is your greatest teacher. Your body can teach you exactly where you need to heal mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It'll show you. It's like, if you're holding weight, it's going to tell you one story. If you've got fatigue and pain, it's going to tell you another. If you've got skin conditions, it's going to tell you another area of your life. So you use your body and you work backwards and you figure out this particular link. And that's how you know that it's firstly unresolved, because it's manifesting physically in your body. Secondly, the traumas. So one of the other interesting things about stressful events and trauma is some really interesting science has started to come out and states that stressful events that you've experienced, if it's unresolved and unprocessed, you can actually pass down to future generations genetically, epigenetically. So great example is Holocaust survivors who've been through horrific, stressful events, didn't have the ability to move through that, to process it. As a result, their grandchildren can actually manifest these or be stressed by the same things. So the way in which you stop this stuff from occurring is largely to talk about it. Trauma that goes unspoken about, stressful events that go unspoken about, are the things that both manifest physically in the body and will continue to be passed down. So one of the characteristics is when something manifests physically in your body, the stressful event must be unexpected. So it must be something that catches you off guard. Your neighbor says something horrible. Your parent does something and pulls the rug out from underneath you that you weren't expecting. Your boss unexpectedly fires you. One of these unexpected elements. But the other and most important aspect of this is these events feel isolating. Now, what I mean by isolating is it feels like you have to hold it in yourself. It feels like you have to be the one to bear this burden. It feels like you're the one that you can't talk about it because you feel so embarrassed, so ashamed, so guilty, so whatever it might be. When you can't talk about it, it's something like traumas left unexpressed will make your organs weak. There's a saying around there. I'm butchering that, but when you speak about it, when you have the courage to have a tough conversation with people, when you have the courage to speak with someone that you trust, this is how you can start to process that.
Something that I learned from you, a really powerful thing that I actually come back to often, was you talked about anger and what anger is, first of all, and then how we move past anger. Because I know that for me, that definitely until I heard Jake speak was one of the things that was always my first reaction was to get angry. Can you share some of like what you shared with me about anger, what it does, why we do it, and how we get past it?
Yeah, I learned this one from experience too. I was a really angry kid, like always really angry. And when I started to understand anger, so the way I describe anger is like I've got a cup of tea here, and at the bottom of this tea is usually hurt, sadness, grief. The lid that holds that stuff in is anger. And anger is usually the first thing that we experience. It's the emotion or sensation that's easiest for us to go to typically. But the thing is, when you're dealing with an anger issue, you're not dealing with an anger issue. You're usually dealing with an issue where you feel hurt or left out or sad or there's some kind of grief there. But those emotions for most human beings are more difficult for us to express. So anger is usually the the canary in the coal mine, so to speak. It's the signal. It's like when you're getting angry, you're not actually angry, you're getting hurt. So, for example, if Sandra, you were my best friend and you and I said we were going out for dinner and we'd been planning this dinner for ages and I was really looking forward to it. And then 5 minutes to go, you said, Jake, I've actually got a better offer. I'm not going to go. I'm going to go 10-pin bowling with someone else, right? Most people's initial response to that would be to be annoyed, to be frustrated, to be angry. But underneath that is because the reason that anger is there in the first place is because you feel unconsidered. You feel hurt. You feel sad that this person has gone off and done something else and not considered you. And so what I would say is for anyone dealing with a lot of anger issues is actually look at that anger and go, is it really anger or am I dealing with some feeling hurt, feeling inconsidered, feeling of sadness at some capacity? Because I would guarantee that there's usually, not always, but usually some level of that underneath the anger.
Jake, is there ever a point where the trauma is beyond like you being able to help someone where it's like, okay, you've had back pain for 20 years, like this is what it is? Or is there always hope for treatment and for some sort of relief?
I would say there's always hope. Like I'm I'm pretty confident with with when you're able to find that link with people, you can shift it. Like the things that I've seen shift, I've seen people with 30 plus years of neck pain, back pain, like drop it in a day. Like it's pretty insane when you can make these connections. And when you shift at the level of the mind, the body will shift almost immediately. It's like if you're thinking and you're really stressed out in your mind, you'll feel your body tense up. And so when you can help people to change their perspective around some stressful events so they can go, oh, their body will do the same. And so just based like on my experience, I've seen so many miraculous things occur. Like we worked with a 70-year-old lady who she was able to like change the shape of her body by releasing some of this stuff. Like this is huge. But the thing is, so many people out there have given up hope. They feel hopeless. And the reason they feel hopeless is because they've usually been dragged through the traditional healthcare system. They've usually done all the right things. Like they've gone to all the doctors and all the right specialists and all the right healthcare practitioners. And it's nothing against those. I'm not bad mouthing those people at all. Like all these medical people are fantastic, but it's often just that these stressful events are often overlooked. And chances are, if one of your listeners has gone through that and is feeling hopeless, I would say it's likely because they've been through that system and nothing's worked for them. And then eventually people go, oh, it must be me. When a doctor doesn't understand what's going on for my case, like they're the expert, they should know. When they can't understand, it must mean there is something wrong with me. And this ties back to worthiness massively. It's when you feel like, oh, it's my fault. I'm never going to get better. I'm never going to heal. that actually creates secondary problems in the body, and that actually makes it more difficult to heal. So when you can recognize that it's not your fault, that you just haven't necessarily, you've been banging all the nails down, but you just haven't hit the right one yet. When you can hit the right one, that's when you can start to break that belief that there's something wrong with you, because there's nothing wrong with you. If a plant failed to grow, you wouldn't think the plant was worthless or crappy or not good enough. You just realize, oh, maybe this plant doesn't have the right environment to grow. Maybe it needs more sunlight. Maybe it needs more water. Maybe it needs to be a bit more fertilizer. Like you wouldn't think that there was something wrong with the plant, but we do that to ourselves. We think there's something wrong with us. And I don't know what, depending on your views on like spirituality or religion or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's whatever that might be. One of the underpinning things of all religion, all spirituality, is that there is some power in the universe. There's an organization within the universe that made us. Mother Nature, God, Spirit, Source, whatever you want to call it. Mother Nature that put us together. The way that the human body is miraculous. Do you honestly think that Mother Nature would make us faulty or make us broken or make us weak? No, of course not. But we just have these beliefs that we are. The body is this beautiful thing. And when you really understand the power that it is, you can really let go of those beliefs that there is something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with any human being on the face of the earth.
That's such a powerful thing that you just said about, especially for people who you've been to every doctor, everything, and then you internalize it. And I had that experience where like my weight was like huge, and I in my mind done everything. I was like the ideal student in terms of I'd been to the nutritionist and followed the nutrition plan. Then I'd worked with a dietitian, a personal trainer. I'd gone to the I remember going to this doctor. I can't even believe I'm admitting this. I went to this doctor who did HCG shots, which is, do not try this at home, children. And he said to me when I went to the appointment, he said, I've never had anybody who hasn't lost minimum 20 pounds. Like the minimum, you're going to lose 20 pounds. I followed this plan to a T, like did everything he told me to do, went back after the prescribed time, had not lost a pound. And he looked at me and he said, oh, you obviously didn't follow the plan, because everybody loses 20 pounds. And so that was the first of me internalizing and thinking, okay, everybody else does, it must be me. Then I went through this process of, I was referred to an endocrinologist, and he's like this highly esteemed. I had to wait months for this appointment. And I went to him and he looked at my labs and he said to me, there's nothing wrong with you. Just step away from the refrigerator. And I was like, wow. So it really made me feel so broken, because I'd gone to these people who were, authorities who were telling me that, oh, there was something wrong with me. There was something that I wasn't doing. And I was lucky that I eventually connected with a naturopathic doctor who then did a bunch of other things and suggested as well some of the more, like journaling and things like that. And then that was the start of us uncovering what some of my underlying issues were. But you're so right that so many people internalize it. And I'm wondering, Jake, why is it that medicine hasn't made that connection with the mind? Like, we're so advanced in every other area. Why do you think it is that we haven't made that connection between the mind and the body?
Do you want my truthful answer?
I'd love the truthful answer.
There's not much money to be made in that field. There's no pharmacologies that can be created to do that. And I think we live in a world where when so many people, when they go to a doctor, it's the doctor won't even look at them, and they'll just be reading their lab reports and go, all right, here you go. Here's this prescription for X. Here's this prescription. Here's this prescription. And we've been conditioned to go to when there's something wrong with us, when we have a symptom, and there's nothing ever wrong with you. Your body's never broken. A fever isn't a bad thing. It's actually that's something we think, oh, fever's a bad thing. No, it's the body doing its thing. But we're conditioned to believe that because there is something wrong with us, we need a solution outside of ourselves. And if I don't live in the States, but I know in America, like if you turn on the TV, there's ads, and it's like, if you're feeling this, if you're feeling blue, it's like, take this pill, and they're actually illegal in Australia, which is brilliant. But those kind of ads and the kind of barrage of advertisement and conditioning makes us believe that if we have any sort of symptom, we need some kind of pharmacology to fix us. And this is a very disempowering place. And it's very disempowering because it means that you are completely at the mercy of healthcare experts. There's nothing that you can do to help yourself. And I think, firstly, a lot of people aren't willing to take that next step because they've been so conditioned to believe that there's nothing that they can do. They don't believe that they can do anything because they've just put so much of their own power into healthcare experts. And it's a big leap for people to make. It's a leap to go, well, hang on, maybe I can actually start to help myself by starting to deal with some of the stuff that I've been through at the level of the mind and see what happens at the body. But modern science is starting to understand this, but the way that we approach, particularly medicine, like a lot of alternative healthcare modalities, are becoming so much more aware of how the mind affects the body. But in terms of real traditional medicine, I think that's kind of a little way off just yet, because basically it's like having the Titanic, and it's like trying to turn the Titanic around. That boat's so big and so heavy, and it's had so much momentum in one direction. It's going to be a slow boat to turn around. I think it's slowly turning, and there's more and more medical doctors. Like, I'm training some medical doctors at the moment on how to start doing this, and they're slowly starting to understand, but it's just a longer process, I do believe. And I think because we have been so socially conditioned to look for a medicine to fix us instead of ourselves, that's partly why it's so slow.
Was it a big leap for you? So I'd imagine your colleagues must have thought, you've got this successful practice. Like, are you crazy? Gonna practice this new age woo-woo kind of stuff? Like, was that a big leap? Was there fear for you in leaving such an established profession?
Massively. Biggest decision of my life. It was huge. I studied at uni for 5 years, and then it took me a couple of years to get to a point where I felt ready to open a practice. And then I opened this practice, and it was going really well. And then I'm like, there's more to getting better than just this one element. Just that there's more to just the physical. So yeah, I got called all kinds of things when I left my practice. People were like, "Are you crazy, man? Like, what are you doing?" So, but that was okay. It was a necessary step, but it was very scary to do. Yeah.
So tell me about your practice now. What does that look like? What kinds of people do you work with? How do people work with you?
Yeah. So now, typically, the people that I work with are the people that have recognized that they've been through all the traditional modalities they've got some kind of chronic health condition. And when I was talking about medicine before and like traditional healthcare, that model is really, really, really well suited to acute care. Like, if you have a physical trauma, you get hit or you have like a really acute condition, that's the place for those kind of people and those kind of conditions. But when you've got something like that's really long standing, like 20 years of pain or fibromyalgia or these IBS symptoms that have been going on for 15 years, and you've done everything right, they're the people that I work with. They're the people that go, and it's usually the people that are starting to wake up. They're starting to recognize that maybe my IBS or maybe my pain isn't because of a lack of paracetamol or a lack of nutrients in my body. Maybe it's something going on in between my ears. Maybe it's some of the stressful events that I've experienced in my life that's contributing to it. And so then those people come to me, and we don't look at anything physical. We don't look at their posture or their diet. We don't look at, for the most part, we just look at what symptoms they have. And using Germany medicine as that kind of roadmap, we go, okay, you've got this symptom. This is the type of stressful event linked to it. Where in your life did you experience this? And we hunt around and we dig around, and we help people identify where their physical condition started at the level of the mind. And then it's a matter of helping these people to move through that, to release it, to process that, and then to start to create a new future that's free of that.
So we live in a world where I can't remember what the stats are, but I remember reading something that said more than 50% of people say they're chronically stressed all of the
Yeah.
time. Um, like what recommendations do you give? Like based on your experience, your patients, what recommendations would you give us about here are some of the things, the key things that you should be doing to help yourself?
Yeah, so there's a number, and my biggest thing is it's sometimes you got to look backwards to go forwards. And so when people are chronically stressed, is I go, well, what does that mean? Because that can mean a whole heap of different things. And this is when you can start to see your underlying patterns, your underlying unconscious childhood behaviors, because at the core of every adult, there is a child driving the bus. There is a child making decisions. There's usually a hurt child making a lot of our decisions. And so a lot of the things that contribute to chronic stress are these unconscious patterns that we've developed from childhood. So people that work constantly and just can't slow down, that's usually a pattern that stems from childhood. People constantly feeling abandoned, people constantly worried what people will think, people constantly not trusting other people, or like there's a whole range of them. But sometimes it's important to look back and go, well, what's causing this behavior? It's really important to define that behavior that stresses you. So maybe you think that everyone's judging you. Maybe you're judging yourself constantly. Maybe you're constantly thinking that you're not worthy. And so because you feel so unworthy, you need to do stuff to make up for that. Look at that pattern and go, like really, really identify it and go, what is the thing that's causing this chronic stress? And then it's a matter of piecing together where that started and reconciling where that started. Then once you've done that, you have a choice. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate. I love that saying because we all have these unconscious conditionings, these unconscious patterns that if we are unaware of them, they will just run our lives and we'll just be like, I don't know what's going on, but I just feel stressed all the time. And these things will just run our life. But when you can become aware of them, when you can become conscious of what's driving the bus, what's driving these behaviors, all of a sudden you have a choice to go, well, hang on, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I don't want to constantly work and throw myself into doing all the time in order to feel safe. It's when you can identify where that comes, now you've got a choice. And then it becomes a matter of starting to practice being present, being in your body. Because one of the things that happens is when humans get stressed, we disassociate from our body. We disconnect from our body and we separate from our body. We go numb. Parts of us tighten and constrict. We have these tensions in our body. And part of this work is learning how to get back into your body, to feel your body and to calm your body, because that's what's going to make the difference.
Jake, what are your absolute must-haves? So you obviously have the privilege of, I guess, hindsight, maybe, in
Mhm.
terms of you see all of these things and how they've manifested in people. And so, what are some of the things that you do? What are your must-have practices, daily practices, in your life?
The first one is simple: exercise. Like I cannot recommend. Like it's just phenomenal the amount of people that are stressed that don't exercise. Like it's just there's so much science behind moving your body and how that can help to process stress. Like if I'm ever stressed, I go for a run. I'll go and like I do CrossFit most days. Like I have to move my body. I think that's part of my nature. But one of the first things is if you're chronically stressed and you're not moving, well, you're missing on a really big opportunity to do so. The second thing that I do, and that's like my non-negotiable, is breath work. So breathing and learning how to breathe again. Because when you're stressed, when you're chronically stressed, you breathe like this. And you're not even aware that you're breathing like that. And what that actually does is it actually feeds more sympathetic activity. It actually, your body feels more stressed when you breathe that way. So learning how to actually breathe and regulate your own nervous system to stimulate more parasympathetic or more calming parts of your nervous system is a critical practice to learn. It's kind of like swinging a tennis racket. If you go and learn how to play tennis, you get taught the technique of swinging a tennis racket. We never taught how to breathe. We have to learn how to breathe. I've got an ice bath in my garage. I get in that pretty regularly. That's a great way to really calm the nervous system down. But above all, and I would say one of the most important elements to reducing your stress levels is having a community that you trust and that you can vulnerably share things with. Because my mentor, Will, his mother always used to say, a burden shared is a burden half. And so the things that we internalize, the things that we don't want to let go of and don't process and don't talk about it, these are the things that lead to that chronic stress. And these are the things that lead to physical manifestations in the body. So being able to share them with people that you trust is so, so important. So, so important.
So tell me about some of the things that are available right now. Like, what are some of the, if people want to find you, like, what are some of the ways that they can work with you?
So one of the best ways to work with us in our programs, with our programs, is we have a program called the Pain Eliminator. This is probably one of our signature methods. So if you're specifically dealing with pain, we have a program catered to that. So this program teaches you how to identify the specific links with whatever pain you're dealing with. If you've got back pain or shoulder pain or knee pain or jaw pain or whatever, this program teaches you how to identify that specific cause of it, and also teaches you how to process your emotions, how to start releasing some of this stuff, changing your perspective, and understanding your own childhood patterns. So this is probably one of our best programs, and probably my favorite one. And I'm just trying to look here. So yeah, to get onto that, we have a free training on that. So basically, if you want to learn more about that, I go through about a 60-minute training, which explains more specifically about pain and how that is affected in the body. And so if you guys want to check that out, you can just head over to thepaineliminator.com.
Here's something that blew me away, because I did go on your website, I did watch the thing, the freebie, and I was blown away by how much you gave in that. And like most free things is like, oh, here's a PowerPoint or, a PDF. It's amazing. Like if you don't do anything else with Jake, like just watching that was so informative. So I highly, highly encourage you to check that out, and we'll share the link. And we'll also be sharing all the links as well to some of the other programs that you have. Do you still do one-on-one consultations, Jake?
I'm starting to do more. I was at capacity there for a while, but I'm starting to build back up. So we do have a couple spots on our website for one-to-one work. We do some one-on-one consults. So this is probably most suited for people who have like one injury or one condition that they want to understand, which is, so say you had back pain, you can come to me and we can help you figure that out pretty quickly. We also have some more in-depth coaching, which looks more at childhood patterns and the unconscious behaviors that we get into that cause stress, so that we can start to move through that. But yeah, that freebie that you're talking about, when you sign up or when you go to that free training, the Pain Eliminator, in there we also give you what's known as our guide. And this is really cool. So this is where it's like an index where you can look up, what does back pain mean? What does weight gain mean? What does this mean? What does that mean? And it's going to give you a whole host of links, and so you can understand your own body and understand your own conditions.
I remember when I downloaded and then I messaged you. I was like, I'm diagnosing all my family members. Like literally was like, oh, this person is this. Oh, this is what it is.
It's so true. I was just going to say, it's so true. Like when you understand how or what kind of conditions are caused by certain stresses, you look at someone and you go, oh, I know what you've been through. I know what this is. I know what that is. So it's a whole new way of relating to understanding people as well.
Jake, your work is obviously so profound. And for anybody who wants to go on your website, we'll share your website link. You have like so many testimonials from people who are like, I had pain, I had this for 20 years. Like, it's incredible. Like, it truly is incredible. My question for you is, what is your greatest wish for yourself and the work that you want to put out into the world?
That's a really good question. So my big mission in life is to change the way we look at disease. So to change the way that we look at our bodies. And this work comes down to changing the relationship that we have with ourselves, right? So the relationship that you have with yourself, and this is why I love what you do so much, Sandra, is it's so critical, is when I want to help people realize that you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. Your body is magnificent. It's just adapting to the stressful events that you've experienced in your life. And when you can really operate from that place, it eliminates a lot of the fear that we have around our symptoms. It eliminates a lot of the stress and worry that we have about getting sick or getting ill one day or dealing with symptoms. And you can just start to really work with your body instead of constantly battling and fighting against it, which is such a beautiful thing to do. So my big mission in life is to help people eliminate fear from their body and start to understand their body and to start really, really changing the way we view disease.
Jake, one of the things that I believe truly is the power of our words. And I know that you believe it too, because you talked earlier on about the power of Lisa's words. And I'd love to know from you, if you had to finish this sentence, what would you say? I am
Powerful. And the reason I say that, and I'd suggest that everyone else can answer that question in the same way, is because we have this incredible ability to heal, but we just don't know how to tap into it. And when you learn how to tap into that, you are very powerful. No longer do you have to give your power away to a pill or a potion or someone in a white coat. It's like when you realize this work, you realize how powerful you are as a human being.
You are powerful. You are amazing. It has been an incredible joy, incredible honor to have you join us today. Thank you so much, Jake. Where can people find you? Where can people connect with you?
Sandra, it's been an honor. Thank you so much for having me. You can check out, we have a free training on our website, which is the paineliminator.com. Alternatively, you can check out, I think our freebie is on our website, which is just mindbodymasters.com. You can connect with me on Instagram, which is just Jake_Currie. And I also have a podcast called Mind Body Masters podcast, which is teaching you all about some of this work in a bit more depth. So yeah, plenty of places.
We will link to all of those. So just to make sure you all know, when you look for him on Instagram, it's Currie with an IE on the end. And the website is Mind Body Masters. And let's just talk about that for one last second. Why did you call it Mind Body Masters?
I could have called it Mind Body Master, but that makes it about me. This is about teaching people how they can master their own mind and body connection so that they can start to heal themselves or from the inside out. So it's about cultivating a community throughout the world of people who have the power to heal themselves, have the power to master that connection between mind and body, and really shift things from the inside out.
You are truly a gem. I am so grateful to be able to call you a friend. And y'all, honestly, Jake has some of the best meditations out there. So sign up for something from him, because his voice, I'm just like, So yeah, so definitely check him out, check out his work. You're doing phenomenal things in the world. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for making time for us today.
Pleasure.
And if nothing else, it's definitely opened my eyes to just the amazingness that is my body. And thank you for reminding us that we are not broken. Thank you, Jake.